All right, I think I figured it out. I think I know why the NPC media is going crazy over Ghostbusters 3, right? We've seen article after article now, actors coming out mad that movie's coming out, not starring the Whammons, and it's just about every day we have an attack, right? And I think I know what it is. It's almost like a remorse or a defeat, right? Now, this movie, if you don't know, 2016 Ghostbusters was a full-on like battleground online. We had the NPC versus the norms, and they were going at it pretty much, that entire movie's lead up. And when it bombed, there was a lot of laughing. And we had old Scott Mendelson here, the biggest of the shill media, the king of the NPC journalists, with the face only a mother could love.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
So now he's blaming Star Wars nostalgia, right? And his whole crux of his argument is that the nostalgia and the legacy factor of how they did Force Awakens is what's fueling this, even though it came out years before this Ghostbusters movie did. And really, there's not much of a correlation there. But, these people are trying to piece together why this is happening. Why wouldn't the movie studio take the already established Whammon version? Why wouldn't they do that? I can't believe they're ditching us. Like I've said a million times, these NPC people, they think that business runs on unicorn and rainbows, and that's not how things work. Sony lost a ton of money, and now they want to recoup it. And the best way to recoup it is to do the legacy model that works. You bring in a new team, a younger team, and you have the older crew pass the torch. It makes sense, and it's what makes money. But old Scott Mendelson here is like, he can't understand it. Well, I can't believe that the studios want to make money.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
Let's go over a little bit of Captain Smug's writing. The first two paragraphs that he writes for this article are gold. Like and I've done it before, you can just almost read the entire Scott Mendelson article and have a good time because they're so cringy. Just the way he writes. But listen to this. This is the opening paragraph here, and it's pretty cringe. Here's his opening argument. I shudder to think of the notion that we're going to have to spend the next year essentially rehashing the great cultural Ghostbusters war. Of course, if we could have a different outcome in 2020 than we did in 2016, specifically by electing whomever the Democrats run for president this time out, that would be swell. But I digress. I totally understand why Leslie Jones is as upset as she is about Sony's new plans for a Jason Reitman-directed Ghostbusters movie. However, the movie turns out it's not hard to view as a film that is a glorified rebuttal of the 2016 reboot and a relative victory for the very worst Ghostbusters fans that turned the Paul Feig-directed Our Lady reboot into a giant online talking point. That's especially true, as being a black woman daring to exist online, Jones arguably got the worst of it. So this is how he starts off. If we could just, vote the Democrats in this time, that would be swell. And then he goes on to talk about, and that's the key. This is the key right here that really upset him. The key is that this movie being made is a victory for the people that were against the 2016 reboot. They lost one, right? It's the same kind of stuff that you see going on politically right now, and that's why they're mad. It's like these people, it's their way or the highway, and that's the only way it's ever going to be with people like Scott Mendelson.
No shit.
This right here, he talks about how Ghostbusters was the biggest grossing live-action comedy of 2016, right? Now, this is where it's funny. It's the biggest grossing live-action comedy, right? All you're going to remember out of that sentence is biggest grossing, more than likely, and that'll make you think, well, I was reading this Scott Mendelson article, and he said it was a big grossing movie. What they don't tell you, see, he actually compares it to Deadpool which earned 126 million domestic, right? Now here's the spin on that. Ghostbusters cost $144 million to make, and that's just to make. We're not even talking about advertising and promotions and stuff like that. Deadpool, I think, was really cheap to make. I think they only spent like $60,000 on the budget, right? So that movie made a crap ton of money because of that. It made gang bucks because, it was cheap to make. Ghostbusters, was one of those movies where they throw the kitchen sink in or whatever. So this is a whole bunch of BS right here. Then this is where he talks about how, my cultural sexism and fan bases being toxic and stuff like that. And he talks about how basically Star Wars, because it was successful anyway, how The Force Awakens and Creed and Jurassic World were successful because they included, the older movies, which is a smart idea, right? Because you're world building, number one, and you're not making the last group of fans angry. But it's this last part that I really, really liked, because this is almost like him saying, like, don't worry, they can't erase it from us. We'll always have it. Like he's in mourning, right? It's like he's in mourning, for real. Listen to this. But again, that Sony is making a new Ghostbusters sequel, one that will apparently feature 4 young kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, who get into an adventure that may or may not involve the original cast members. I assume Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson are showing up for sure. It isn't about erasing the last movie from existence. Fun fact, a reboot can't do that any more than a bad movie adaptation can erase a good book, or a fictionalized movie can retroactively change the real history. Even after Spider-Man Homecoming, there are folks who still watch and enjoy The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Even though Edward Norton was replaced by Mark Ruffalo, fans and moviegoers still watch and enjoy The Incredible Hulk. So see, it's almost like he's in mourning, and that's where I came up with the idea that these people are just mad and upset because they're defeated, right? It's almost like, and it's funny that he mentions 2016, and then he talks about the election and stuff like that. It's because he got defeated there. And now this cultural milestone is going back to its roots. That's a cultural stone lost. That's another defeat, right? And in these things, holding on to those cultural milestones and nodes, those are important. And one big one, arguably, was just lost. And it's a defeat. And that's why you're seeing all of these shills come out angry about this, right? Because they would rather see Ghostbusters burn and be destroyed than for them not to keep pushing the views that they want. And before we go, let's do a little bonus content. So this is a little more fun, a little more positive. I thought I would touch on before we take off. A student refused to pay for his date's meal after she ordered lobster and a $90 bottle of wine, and she wasn't happy about it. So this is a fun story. Not quite enough to do a video, so I thought I would put it at the end of this one. So what's going on here is basically this girl released all of the texts between her and this guy, right? And she put them all on Reddit thinking that they would be on her side, and they weren't. So here is the story real quick, and you're going to get a kick out of this. So he asked her out on a date or whatever. They go out, and he gets like a modest thing. He gets like a beer and a sandwich, right? A little modest, cheap little amount for him. And that's a cheap way to save money on a date too, by the way, for you guys that are out there that are single and looking. Fill up before you go out to eat. And then you can save a little bit of money. She gets her food, and you've already eaten, so you can just get something really tiny. And you save a little bit of money that way. So that's probably what he did. However, she goes and orders a Maine lobster. I'm talking out of the tank, and a bottle of wine, right? A $90 bottle of wine. And the whole time, she's like telling him about some other dude that she likes. And he's like, what? I'm not going to pay for you. So when the bill came, he made her pay. And she got mad and called it rude. And in the text, he's like, you were talking about some dude the whole time. Like, what do you expect? Because he asked her if she wanted to go out again. He's trying to get him some. And she's like, oh, I'm going to post this thing on the internet. And it backfired in her face. So that's just a fun little story. Somebody getting their up and comings. But what an entitled bee, huh? For real. Anyway, like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Let me know what you thought about the Ghostbusters thing or this, whatever. Leave a comment. Just tell me what you're thinking. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Check out the links in the description, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.